Okay, so we start with activity 2 now. We've just done activity 1, which should have given you this nice layout here. Let's see if I can move that up a little bit higher. It's going to be good at UD review, just make that look a little better. So double click on that, design view, just drag that up there when it works because it's annoying. There we go. Now it looks a little bit better when we go to the relationship tab, save that. There we go, it looks a bit better now. Okay, so we now have relationships done, and we have to do something called validation. So validation is where we ensure that things just basically work and don't give us wrong values. So what we're going to do here is go into volunteer, because that's our first bit of validation, and we know we need to make a record or not save without the surname and telephone number of the volunteer being present. So what we can do here is go into the design view. Now, this is where I said earlier that you may want to leave the data entry to the last part of the task, because you may find that testing this is a bit hard once you've already filled the data in. However, when you're doing it, make sure you do it in a logical fashion. Leave the data entry to the last minute you can. So if we go down to here, click on volunteer surname, and you'll notice there's a lot of different fields here. So our first one is surname and telephone number being present. So you see a tab called required, just change that to yes, and do the same for mobile, and that's it. You've done that first bit of task. All that is ensuring is that you have made sure those two fields are required. So we go back to here. Now, yes, it's fine, just close it. So when you I'll point out when you do the assessment, do not do this. This is just so I can prove it's working. If I was to start a record by typing in, let's say, someone called Jack, and I left the record there, it would soon tell me I've got to enter a value in the volunteer mobile field. The same is true if I deleted Jack and put a random load of numbers in there. For some reason it's not done that, so let's check what's happened with that particular one. Go back to design, go to volunteer surname. Well, it should have done it. I can only imagine because the fact that we've just deleted their thing that was in there, it's now going to let us get away with it. Don't completely trust Access, it's not the best. In this case we'll try doing the number first. And there we go, it's now saying take the surname field. It's not guaranteed to work every time, but essentially when you do it, you should find that it will block something off. If you were to put something in there, let's call it Kevin, this one, and take something else out of it, it might let you carry on. It really shouldn't, but that's an Access problem. It's not you've done something wrong, it's just the system. But as we've seen, it does check both of them to make sure it's entered once, so as long as you don't delete the entry, it should be fine. Now I'm going to remove these two because they're not actually real records. And that's our first bit of validation done. Now, a record will not save the volunteer mobile number is not in the correct format. This is one of these sort of unusual questions that are often thrown out and are not necessarily helpful. In this case, we can change our format to meet what is a standardization. So for instance, if you've got a postcode or if you've got something similar to that, you might find there's an agreed length and type of data that goes into it. As I've already suggested with this particular one, using the number format may not be helpful because it will delete the 0. You can use an input mask, for instance phone number. That may actually be the best option thinking about it. So you should be able to type the number in. You should be able to try it, so what we'll do, we'll try that out with our data inside of it. So let's go to the top part here, rotate clockwise, and then to the number in we've seen here. So does it work? Right, 0, 6, 9, 7, 9, 7, 5, 2, 2, 2, 9. Then click next. Well, it seems to work fine. So the input mask seems to work. So we can just run that. So let's try that, finish that. That's our input mask. And so we go into it. it should make sure that a data always has to fill that format. It would help if I had done that in the right table. I seem to have done that in the surname one, so we'll just copy that from there and chuck that in mobile. There we go, easily fixed. So we go back to here. You should find it's changed the format of the data. You can change that however you like in the input mask. We can delete a few values. We could even just go back to it and change the brackets, for instance, leaving the space in there. Actually, it was exactly the same effect again. No why the 9's gone in there. It's a case of playing around with it really until you are comfortable with what you're coming out with. But the idea, you should always be able to get an input mask in there that represents your data. If you go to postcode, that's an unusual one. My suggestion would be to put in a list of things such as letters and numbers. However, in many cases it's accepted just to put a length criteria in there. But for a number you can use the input mask. If you're having issues with the input mask, you can set a field size which stops it going over a certain number, which is ideal, but I'd suggest you use the input mask that we had in there previously. It's not going to undo, but you've seen what it is, just utilise that. And we'll go back to here, so saved. So you'll find that once you have your input mask or your length in there, you'll no longer be able to enter anything that doesn't fit into that particular mask, and that's your validation sorted. I'd recommend the input mask, but you can use a fill length if you prefer. Right, so a record not safe is a beach is assigned to an invalid district. Essentially speaking, this is actually part of your relationships. So you go back to here, we know that a beach has many districts to one district. It would be impossible for us to put a false district in there, which was caused by the error last time. So we went to district beaches here, and we created a fake beach. Let's call it Windside, just to be copy the line above it. Put some random stuff in there, and say it's got a lifeguard. If I assign it to a district 4, the record will not save because the district does not exist. So that's how you part of your relationships. The way you evidence that is by proving your relationships are correct and potentially screenshotting this part of the thing here showing it doesn't work. However, in reality, if you've got the relationship shown, that should be enough to ensure that that's met that criterion, because you have actually shown that the correct district can only be assigned due to the way relationships work. So we can close this one down. Let's just make this a 1 for a second so it doesn't cause any more errors, and we'll delete Windside. So that one's fine. Now again, same thing as I just said before, if you've done your relationships correctly, it'd be impossible to assign a district to a volunteer that's not correct. So as long as your relationships are done correctly, as they are here, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, a record will not save if the cleanliness review rating is below the accepted range. This is about setting a range of values, and it's very similar to the do not save if it's above the accepted range. So really that's just one question. How do we make sure it only saves the cleanliness rating is within a threshold? So what we can do, if we scroll back up to the question, now we can see a beach has a cleanliness rating of 1 and a maximum of 3. So our thing is between 1 and 3. So what we can do, if we go to, which one was it on? It's on UD Review. We'll go to our design view again and go to cleanliness rating. We know it's a number. So we're setting something called a validation rule. Now there's two things you can have here, a validation rule and a validation text. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set the rule to be greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 3. The reason we're doing this is that if it is equal to 1 it's correct, and if it is greater than 1 it's correct, as well as if it's less than 3 it's correct, as well as if it's equal to 3 it's correct. The AND says it's between the two. If we use an OR, it will always be correct either way, because we're saying it could be that or that. We're saying it has to be between 1 and between 3. This is why we use AND. Default value will have to change to a 1 or a 3 or anything else, because it would not save as anything else there. But thinking about it, we could use a 0, because that would mean that we have to change it before we carry on. Validation text is not asked for here, but you can set it. For instance, the range is between 1 and 3, and then when you do an error it's not correct, it will ping up and tell you that. Some questions may ask you that, this one hasn't, so we're going to remove that one for now. So we save that, it will again warn you rules have changed, we don't care, it's fine. So, go back to here, and as we can see, it's got a range now. If we scroll back to activity 2, we can test that. So we go to here, and we see our cleanliness range. Let's take the last one, it's currently a 2, let's make it a 0. As you can see, it's telling you the range is wrong. Let's make it a 4, telling you the range is wrong. Make it back to the original 2, it's fine. We see that there's 1, 2 and 3 all in there, so we know our range is now working. And that's your validation sorted. So what we can do is we can take a picture of our table structures, and that will validate these ones here. And we can take a picture of our formats and say, right, the range is done correctly. And we do a picture of the rest of them as well and just say, right, these are also working. For the mocks you upload to me, you can just provide the access file and I can check it. So either way it works well. But if you were doing the exam, you would need to, well, when you're doing the exam, you'd need to make sure that you take the screenshot of these and put it in your activity log. It will be laid out for you, so it should be self-explanatory. It also tells you how to do your screen prints as well, by making sure each design's view is shown. Design view is this part, and you can see it tells you each section what part it is. You may want to show specific parts of the validation rule as well. So for instance, this one's not going to be special in here, but you may want to check things like this that got the validation rule. Screen print that, and it's huge length from things like presence check. So presence check could be, in this case we've got volunteer, we'll go to here. Presence check is simply our yes or no. Length check would be the yearly review, so the range for instance. But you might want to go more to the phone number for that one, because that, as you can see, will likely have a field size or an input mask, so that will be more of a length check really. Your value lookup range check again is here. You could do a lookup value, again I'll cover that another time, but that would be where you can set values to look up, which I've again mentioned is another option, but in this case it's not really required. Table lookup, again very much the same thing as just mentioned, and a format check, which is the input format. Essentially that's all just making sure that the information is what is required. In this case I'm not sure there's actually a table lookup provided, so I'm not sure why it's asking for one. But obviously if you do find anything that's reliant on a table data to work, you just screenshot that as well along with a format check, and that should give you the information you need for this particular part of it. So go through each section, just make sure you've got a screenshot of you accepting each of these parts of it, and double check you've got these as well. You might find that not all of them are applicable, but if they are, completing these should actually cover it. Let's have activity 2.